When a fifth grader stares at a math worksheet, freezes, and shrinks into their chair, the adults usually assume the child lacks focus or ability. We place the blame squarely on the student. But look at the environment they are learning in. We are running a 19th century classroom model. One teacher, 45 students, and a fixed pace determined by an annual exam schedule. The child who needs an extra 10 minutes to process a concept simply gets left behind. The ASER 2023 report indicates that only 36% of Class 5 students across India can successfully complete a basic division problem. This represents a massive statistical gap that widens every year the system continues to ignore individual pacing. Families recognize the gap and try to patch it. They pay for evening tuition classes. But these extra sessions almost entirely replicate the exact same group dynamic, one instructor talking at a crowd of mixed ability kids. Forcing every child through an identical timeline punishes those who process information differently. Over time, the system quietly convinces perfectly capable young people that they simply do not fit into the academic world. This schematic of a human brain illustrates a biological problem with that approach. In 2009, cognitive scientist Daniel Willingham demonstrated that rote memorization physically starves the brain of dopamine, the chemical reward that makes the effort of learning feel worthwhile. Human cognition evolved to solve problems. When you figure out a puzzle, your neural pathways light up with dopamine. The brain thrives on resolving friction, not on repeating identical lists of facts until the clock runs out. Without that chemical reward, engagement collapses. By the time many students reach Class 7, they switch off entirely. The natural impulse to raise a hand and ask why vanishes, replaced by a dull compliance to just memorize what. When a subject no longer offers any intellectual reward, the child actively withdraws, taking the physical posture of shutting down at the table. The heaviest penalty of a one-size-fits-all education is the permanent extinction of a child's innate curiosity. In 1984, educational psychologist Benjamin Bloom published a study identifying the single most effective way a human being can learn. He called it the 2 sigma advantage, and it requires one-on-one tutoring. This chart shows exactly what that looks like. You have a standard bell curve for the classroom average, but the curve for tutored students shifts 2 full standard deviations to the right. A tutored student will consistently outperform 98% of conventionally taught peers. Educators have known this for 40 years. The roadblock was entirely economic. Hiring a dedicated, expert personal tutor for every single subject was a luxury reserved for the wealthiest families. Today, artificial intelligence removes that financial barrier, democratizing the 2 sigma advantage for anyone with a smartphone. Ranker IQ is built specifically for Indian students starting Class 5 mathematics. It is a voice-first tutor that converses in Hinglish. There are no complicated logins and no typing required. The child simply talks to it. This visualization shows the engine running underneath. Ranker IQ utilizes item response theory, the precise modeling science that powers exams like the GRE. It is constantly modeling the child's exact cognitive level. The AI selects the next question at a perfectly calibrated difficulty. It presents a challenge steep enough to promote actual growth, but flat enough to prevent the student from feeling overwhelmed. If the child gets stuck, Ranker IQ does not glance at a clock and move on to the next chapter. It simply pauses. It rephrases the prompt. It tries a different analogy, staying infinitely patient until it lands. When every session meets a student exactly where they are, they start succeeding. You see the immediate return of self-belief that crowded classrooms eroded away. A 2019 study by Ma and colleagues found that this specific type of adaptive AI tutoring generates an effect size of 0.66. In practical terms, it's the academic equivalent of cutting a massive classroom size right in half. Ranker IQ requires true comprehension before advancing. By prioritizing real understanding over performed memorization, the child masters the foundation. They won't have to relearn fractions from scratch again next year. For parents, the current system is an absolute blind spot. Getting a report card twice a year with a percentage grade tells you nothing about what your child actually understands or where they are silently struggling today. Ranker IQ solves this through the app parents already check every day. After a session, it sends a plain language summary via WhatsApp. It tells you exactly what was practiced, what needs attention, and one specific way to encourage them at home. According to 30 years of research from Dr. Epstein at Johns Hopkins University, regular parental awareness of a child's learning progress is a stronger predictor of academic success than household income. Real-time, frictionless updates remove the anxiety of the unknown, giving parents the exact tools they need to foster growth without causing conflict. The World Economic Forum's 2023 report estimates that 44% of workers' core skills will be disrupted in the next 5 years. AI will consume jobs defined by repetitive tasks. Training a child purely for rote recall prepares them for an economy that is already disappearing. The adults who thrive in the coming decades will be the ones who developed deep conceptual logic and analytical problem-solving skills early on. Mastering a concept in a private, low-stakes environment transforms how a child perceives the high-stakes classroom. When the teacher begins a lesson, the child recognizes the principles they've practiced, replacing the reflex to hide with a genuine desire for participation. Higher marks will naturally follow as a byproduct of that shift. But the actual victory is securing a curious, confident child, equipped to tackle problems they've never seen before. The system may have failed them, but Ranker IQ fixes it, one conversation at a time.